Hey everybody, and welcome to 5 Minute Theologian. I'm your host, Kyle Bailey, and this show is all about covering popular Bible topics in less than 5 minutes, expanding your knowledge of Scripture simply and practically. Have you ever had the thought, is this really God speaking to me or just my own imagination? Well, if you have, you're definitely not alone. Every follower of Christ eventually wrestles with discerning God's voice. Thankfully, Scripture gives us clear principles that we can follow to gain confidence and clarity when hearing from God. The first and most important principle for discerning God's voice is that His voice will never contradict Scripture. The psalmist writes in Psalm 119:105, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." This means that the Scriptures are our ultimate guide. If the message you're sensing or hearing contradicts the clear teachings of the Bible, you can confidently reject it as not from God. God's voice always aligns perfectly with His written word, which is our safeguard against confusion and deception. Secondly, when discerning God's voice, pay close attention to the inner witness of peace. Colossians 3:15 says, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts." God does not speak through fear, anxiety, or confusion. He leads with peace, clarity, and assurance. Does the decision or direction that you're considering leave you unsettled and troubled? If so, pause and pray some more, because God's direction always comes packaged with peace, even if it's challenging. A third powerful principle is the importance of seeking godly counsel and confirmation. Proverbs 11:14 reminds us that in an abundance of counselors there is safety. When you sense God leading you, seek input from mature believers whose lives consistently reflect Jesus. God often confirms His voice through the wise perspectives of trusted spiritual mentors, pastors, or friends who can help you discern clearly. Don't isolate yourself in your decisions. Embrace the wisdom of other mature believers. Number 4, always examine the fruit and character associated with the voice that you're hearing. In Matthew 7:16, Jesus teaches, "You will know them by their fruits." God's voice never leads us into behaviors, attitudes, or outcomes that contradict His holy character or produce negative spiritual fruit. Instead, His voice consistently moves us towards greater love, patience, holiness, and humility. If what you're sensing consistently creates division, pride, selfishness, or sin, you can be sure that it is not God's voice guiding you. The fifth and often overlooked principle is the practice of intentionally quieting your heart to listen. Psalm 46:10 says clearly, "Be still and know that I am God." The truth is, God usually speaks gently and quietly. It's incredibly easy in our fast-paced world to miss God's voice simply because we're too busy, too distracted, or just unwilling to pause and listen. Make it a priority each day to intentionally slow down, find quiet moments, and tune your heart to hear God's gentle whisper. You'll be amazed at how clearly you begin to discern His voice when you make space to listen carefully. Before we close, let's quickly recap these 5 practical steps to discerning God's voice clearly and confidently. Number 1, God's voice always aligns with Scripture. Number 2, God's voice carries peace, not anxiety or confusion. Number 3, God confirms His voice through wise, godly counsel. Number 4, God's voice produces spiritual fruit consistent with His holy character. Number 5, God speaks clearly to hearts that intentionally quiet themselves and listen. So, discerning God's voice isn't supposed to be complicated. It's practical and it's accessible for every believer. God deeply desires to communicate with you personally every single day. When we faithfully apply these biblical principles, we'll find ourselves becoming more and more confident that we're truly hearing His voice. I want to thank you so much for watching 5 Minute Theologian. If you're new here, please consider following or subscribing. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and share it with others. We'll see you next time.